Hi. Here in Israel, I say good evening, ladies and gentlemen, but there's some people from across the briny who also with us, so I have no idea what hours we're dealing with, but the famous radio announcer named Walter Winchell, 60 or 70 years ago, he started his program by saying, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and all those in ships abroad. So, good evening. Let me just start for those of you who don't know me, and maybe some of those who do, a little bit about my background, so you'll know where I'm coming from. I'm coming from Israel right now, but I was born and raised in Pennsylvania many years ago. My overall education was basically parochial, Orthodox Jewish schools, starting in my hometown and then moving on to New York, where I spent 20 years. High school in the dorm in New York, and college, and the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, all part of the Yeshiva University. My medical training was also in New York City at all the hospitals in the Bronx, basically, if anybody remembers the Bronx. After finishing medical school, which then included residency training, which went on until the age of 35 for me. Eventually became certified in plastic surgery. It's a 2-year break in the middle of all my training, where I spent a year in Philadelphia at the Army Hospital there, near Philadelphia, the Valley Forge Hospital, where I was on the orthopedic service. This was during the Vietnam War. So we had a lot of injuries from the Vietnamese War. I then spent a year in Vietnam. That could take up another half hour and 45 minutes, so we won't get into it, but I was assigned there as a surgeon to an engineering unit. So my background is basically scientific. Most of my years until that time were in science and medicine and all that goes with it. We were in Atlanta, Georgia for 12 years, and I've been here in Israel for 30-odd years, and practiced here as well for 25 years. So I have a good taste of medicine, both here and abroad. Fine. Now, how do we get to the place where I'm interested in macrobiotics and come into that world as well? Very young age, I was having severe neck and back pain. I was getting injections, taking medications, getting to the point where I was sleeping with a collar regularly, taking non-steroidal pain medications, and felt that this was just not for me. At the same time, I was ordering supplements from all over. Joint supplements, and there's heart supplements, and brain supplements. So I got into the joint supplements. One of the supplements I received in the mail came with a little flyer. In the flyer, it said that nightshade vegetables were a serious cause of inflammatory joint disease. My knees had begun to bother me at that time also. So I read this little booklet that came along, talked about nightshades. And nightshades, for those of you, most of you know what they are. They're tomatoes and taters, eggplant, and bell peppers. I stopped them. That was not easy for me because I was called eating streets. Eating street means McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, pizzerias, delicatessens, etc. You get the picture. In any event, I immediately dropped nightshades, which was really for me potatoes and tomatoes. I didn't like eggplant, still don't to this day. Amazingly, 2 weeks later, I felt better. Pain started to go away. And it was quite remarkable. this is what stimulated my interest in maybe diet had something to do with our ailments. But at the same time, I give my wife credit for this. She's always been kind of health oriented, and she found out that there was a seminar in the summertime, and it was devoted to macrobiotics, and it was a health thing. So I said, well, I went along for the ride and went to this seminar. It was very interesting. Food was terrible. That's already beginning to turn me off from the whole idea. But somebody at the seminar suggested that if I wanted to really have a good taste of macrobiotic food, I should contact the Rices, Sheldon and Ginott. This is my connection to Sheldon and Ginott, and Sheldon may rest in peace. But they kind of got me started. Invited us to a couple of dinners at their home in Jerusalem. They had an extensive library, microbiotics and health, all those issues. I started reading. I read a lot of books. Fushi read Sadallaro's book on how he cured himself of prostate cancer. Faulkner, who cured himself of pancreatic cancer. Books on Crohn's disease. Out from New Jersey, who had severe end-stage cancer, who turned everything around with her diet. Elaine Nussbaum. Denny Waxman's book. Took David Briscoe's online. He was one of the first to have online courses, and I took his course. So I really got into the idea, and kind of piqued my interest enough so that I ended up spending some time at the Kushi Institute. I went there for 3 months. I did the whole thing. Really was convinced that this was the answer for all the ailments in the world, and came back and decided to. So my practice was tapering off at that time in medicine, that I would be involved with macrobiotics. I started teaching and lecturing. I then got assigned to a clinic at Petit, which had alternative medicine available, and was doing macrobiotic acceptances there, teaching people. It was interesting, but I really wasn't getting too far along. It's very hard to convince people that they had to change their whole diet in order to be better. Myself, I'm a contrarian of sorts. I always got involved with things that other people didn't think were popular, and certainly macrobiotics can fall into that category. People actually thought we were a little bit crazy to suddenly change our diet, and we couldn't take invitations for dinner because people certainly liked. So that was difficult, but being by nature kind of a contrarian. Didn't ever like going with the flow. In fact, the decision to come live in Israel is in that category. We were living life in Atlanta, Georgia. When we announced to everybody that we were going to Israel, they all thought we were crazy. Many of them we did it, and it's worked out very well from that perspective. In addition to that, I go off the topic a little bit when being contrary. From the very beginning, I was very leery about the whole business with COVID. People who at that time thought the right answer was vaccines and all that, but I just took my stand there, and I still do. Another one that was difficult was my political decision, but that we're not going to. The very fact of being an observant traditional Jew states by itself was contrary. It's not where the average was, or the average American. Got involved in the course of all my wanderings. Israel was Tai Chi. began Tai Chi some 20 years ago. Also not the common martial arts that everybody gets involved in, but we started Tai Chi. 20 years later, we're still doing it. So that also is beneficial. The question is, how did I get all this to jive together? Macrobiotics, my scientific background, medicine. Thinking a lot about it, I found that there were things in macrobiotics that really made sense scientifically. What do I mean by that? You all know the diet. I hope you all know the diet. It's carbohydrate based. It's based on rice and grains, vegetables on the side, and protein. Not protein from meat, protein from beans, chickpeas, lentils, beans. What the diet provides is really what the World Health Organization is recommending as the basic needs for. Okay, what do I mean by the World Health Organization? They did a survey because they're dealing along with the United Nations in starvation. What do we have to provide for people in order to maintain them? What should we be giving to them? Learned and studied all the research and found that when it comes to protein, how much protein does the average person need per day to stay healthy and balanced? It comes to about 1 gram per kilogram per day. So if you're a 60 kilogram person, you need 60 grams of protein. 60 grams is about 2 ounces. You don't need a lot of protein to maintain this. A similar study when it came to fats. How much fat is necessary in the average diet? It's 45 to 75 grams per day. This comes to 2 to 3 ounces of fat oil per day. The rest of the diet is carbohydrates, which are the grains. It made sense to give people rice and wheat, all that. But we didn't need a lot of protein, we don't need a lot of fat. Macrobiotic diet certainly is in line with that. Basic part of the diet is carbohydrates, rice, grains. So that sort of had some correlation. The whole concept of yin and yang as well. The idea behind microbiotics being balanced. To balance the acid side of things and the basic side of things, which is the food. Stay away from very acidic foods, stay away from very basic foods, or the opposite. Interesting thing for me was, and it still is to this day, and I don't know that anybody has an answer to it, is the body is not neutral. In other words, we're not in the middle between acid and base. You get your blood test done, it always says in the top of your list is pH. pH is the measurement of acid and base in your body. The average pH is 7.4. By nature, we're an alkalinic alkalinic creature. Okay, so you have to stay to be balanced on that side. If you're a person in the hospital, severe diabetic alkalosis, your pH is only 7.6, 7.7. There's not a lot of leeway. Come in with an acidic condition, ulcers to that nature, your pH might be 7.1. pH 7, neutral number, will probably be dead. So it's a very fine line that it's just balance. I think that that's again part of the thing that microbiotic diet does is keeps us in that balance. Tells us don't go too far this way, that way. So that sort of helped me a little bit. Then what I found over the years, with 20 some years now, macrobiotic, a lot of things have changed for me. Simple little things you don't think about. I haven't haven't used deodorant since I became macrobiotic. It takes away all those extra body odors that come out from the diet. It's just one thing. There are many other things, but I became more sensitive to what food does to me. Certainly, the starting thing was the nightshades. Now, they definitely affected my health. Interestingly enough, this shows this now because I thought about it. I figured that, well, that was very nice, but maybe now that I'm so more balanced and I'm more in charge of what I put in my body, maybe I should try the nightshade and see what happens. So I had some tomatoes. Lo and behold, a day or two later, my knees became more painful. And it's okay, that's still in effect. So my body still doesn't take to having nightshades. Potatoes, the same thing. Tried some potatoes, some particularly white potatoes. Sweet potatoes are a different category. Tried some white potatoes, and the same thing happened. So we maintain these sensitivities in our lifetime. And for me, it made me much more sensitive to what I'm putting in my body. I have found personally that a bad actor for me is sugar. I grew up on sugar. I was a kid, you had sugar with the cereal and you had sugar in coffee and sugar in tea, and everything was made with sugar. Today, I have the same problem with sugar that I have with the nightshades. If I have sugar at all, my knees start to hurt me. Many years ago, somebody said, why don't you get knees replaced? You know, if they're so bad, it became bad. I was a big jogger. So jogging was very hay in my knee joints. No, I'm doing okay right now. I watch my diet. I have some knee pain, but I can get by. I just don't want to have surgery. So as a surgeon, I became anti-surgery. To my benefit up until this thing. I think the point I want to get across, because Steiner was raised in talks. So flexibility was mentioned. I mentioned I'm kind of a contrarian. I suddenly said to myself, maybe this macrobiotic business is a little overdone. Maybe I should be getting contrary when it comes to macrobiotics. Show this, we all know that top of the pyramid, read it to you. Monthly, optional, infrequent use, transitional. Meat, eggs and poultry, dairy, on the borderline, weekly is fish and seafood. And it goes on down the line, nuts, seeds and nuts and vegetable and beans and bean products, etc., to the basic broad bottom of the pyramid, which are the grains and being a contrarian, I knew I wasn't going to go back to eating nightshades. I said to myself, why can't I have a cup of coffee? Remember when I was at the Cushing Institute, everybody went, what's the name of the village? Not can help me. The Cushing Institute was. So down there on a Sunday morning, a little cafe down there, you'd find all the teachers and professors from the Cushing Institute having coffee and cigarettes. So I said, well, maybe it's not so bad if I have a cup of coffee now. So, today, it's an interesting thing with what's happening with diet today. Back when I was attribute some of my good health maybe to my original diet when I was a kid. Grew up during World War II and thereafter, and there was no processed food. We always artificial thing was Crisco. Shortly after the war, there was margarine. Had fresh butter, fresh milk. Nothing was frozen. Mother was a housewife. She made breakfast for the kids. We had lunch at school, and then dinner and evening was always a cooked meal. Fresh vegetables, usually fresh meat if we had meat. Dad had customers who were farmers, so we used to get fresh corn on the cob. Very little spread. So that was a good basic diet. And got corrupted on my way through medical school when your average meal when you were an intern was a cup of coffee and a cigarette. I haven't smoked for 50 years, but I certainly smoked a lot when I was in training. The point is that today things are different. We have the whole vegan explosion. But in the restaurant you go to today, has vegan options. Let's take out some of the bad actors in our diet. Another thing that's so thing is sugar-free. Everything is sugar-free nowadays. Sometimes the substitutes for sugar probably more troublesome than sugar itself. Living in that age when things are sugar. The other thing is that become really popular, fortunately, is organic. Everything's organic. All the naysayers say, well, they just put organic on it to buy it. But that's not necessarily true. It's a fact that anything that's produced in Israel that's called organic and is exported to Europe undergoes very strict inspection. Europeans are very strict with organic and has to be organic. So most of the stuff not produced here is certified organic. So I say to myself, maybe being organic is more important than being macrobiotic. So we have taken to be much more careful about our diet when it comes to whether it's organic or not. Fortunately now there are farms here and farmers who make organic produce. The other thing too, we now can get range-fed beef. Not a big beef eater, but if you haven't had a good whole beef, range-fed beef burger, you're missing something. One of my treats now is once a month I have one of these good beef burgers. It's not the kind of thing you get at McDonald's. It's whole beef, no fat. Don't get any adverse reaction. A cup of coffee every day, and I try to smoke decaf. It's caffeine. It's another thing my body is very sensitive to. If I have caffeine afternoon, I can't sleep at night. And the other thing that's a nice treat for those of you who are thinking of cheating, there's now a whole slew of fake ice creams. Non-dairy, that's good for the vegans. Ingredients are really natural healthy products, some sugar. So add sugar, sweetening, to try to stay away from aspartame and stevia. It's one thing that is not so dangerous because it's so over and above the dietary play with. I say on an occasional basis, she would agree with that. You can have a go to visit my son. He makes the best chicken, so I know if we go to visit him, I'm going to have a nice piece of chicken. You can have some flexibility when it comes to diet. I think you can't stick to the 7-day macro diet your whole life. It just doesn't. I think this is one of the problems we have. Trying to convince people that the diet is something. I know you're coming from the macrobiotic perspective that I can't do. That's crazy. Who can do that? I have kids in the house and I can't cook, and I learned how to cook also. That was another change in my life. We have been successful. One family we go to visit, It's no longer soda in the house. And sit at the table, the only drink on the table is water. So some things do get across. But over and above the diet, like that, there are other things I think that macrobiotics doesn't stress, I think are important. I don't think that macrobiotics would say don't do that. But there are things we should be doing, I think are important as far as overall health. It's not anything unusual or crazy. First one is exercise. You should be exercising regularly. I mean, going to the gym every day? No, not necessarily. I don't do that, but I have a morning routine where I stretch and all kinds of joint rolls, and I walk a lot. Even though I have knees that are arthritic, I still manage to get out and walk 30 to 40 minutes a day. Go to the internet, there's 25 different sites that tell you how to walk without pain, and if you like it, might help you if you're having that problem. Besides exercise, somebody mentioned breathing. Breath, I have right up on top of my shelf, there's a book called The Healing Power of the Breath by a fellow named Richard Brown, which is a very interesting book. I read, and you have to follow some of the principles in there. And somebody mentioned earlier about exhaling. Exhale properly. Big part of breathing is not breathing in, but breathing out. So that's something that you can practice. You don't have to have a special teacher. You just get the books. There's plenty on the internet about it. Meditating. Meditation is everybody's in meditation. Me, my meditation is my daily prayer. I observe and do every day, and I find that that's requires meditation. Supplements. Tendency is for people to say, stay away from supplements. I think our friend, what's his first name? Philip? Dr. Russo in Charlottesville. Help me, Dina.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, there you go. Michael Rossoff.
Michael Russo, right. Michael Russo. I've also done some of his internet teachings. And he's a big advocate. He says, you don't get enough vitamin C if you're not careful. You don't get enough vitamin D if you're not out in the sun a lot. He also recommends what he calls an adaptogen. That up in your spare time. One of them is rhodiola. He recommends that on a daily basis. So we do take supplements. And, they help. Last years ago, my blood test, I have a thing where I go for my annual physical every 5 years, and I have all the blood tests. And many years ago, my vitamin D level was always insufficient or not adequate. So I started taking vitamin D drops. Last time I had my blood test done, vitamin D level was normal. Most of us can't get out in the sun enough to get our vitamin D levels what they should be. In the old days, the farmers had no problem because they were out working in the sun all year round. Never had vitamin D deficiency. Supplements are certainly wanted. Other one is B12, which is good for blood if you're not eating meat anymore, not taking non-meat proteins. And good vegetable supplements are not something I would include. That said, I think that macrobiotics has got a good foundation in what I call science because of the diet, particularly because of the diet. I learned very quickly we are what we eat. I really think that's a valid statement to make. There's no question about it. So he's talking about you have to have the right genes. I don't know that has some effect. Yeah, I was thinking of my own gene background. My father's parents, father's mother died of basically of cardiac problems, severe swelling, and had strokes. His father was a cardiac, he's a little skinny man, but he had heart troubles and he died of his heart. His father himself had a severe heart attack and just never recovered. He had his heart attack and 24 hours later. His mother had stroke. So while she was in the hospital recuperating, discovered she had bowel cancer. The only bright genetic picture in my family was my mother's grandfather, did macrobiotically everything wrong. Drank a lot of liquor, wasn't a drunkard, but he liked his schnapps. He ate all the meat and potatoes you could put in front of him. Loved his cake and baked goods that my grandmother made. Worked until he was well into his 80s. He was in the salvage business. Uncle, his son, was in business with him. Pop used to go to the yard every day. I think they just sent him there in his 80s just to get him out of my grandmother's hair. Give him something to do. So he was at the yard every day. Passed away. And my uncle supposedly was running the business. Really wasn't running the business. Pop was until well into his 80s. So he goes against the grain. I often wondered about that, and I said to myself, how did he grow up? Where did he grow up? He grew up in Europe. Came to the States as a teenager, but he lived in this, what they call a shtetl, which is Russia. What did they eat? They stayed alive. They ate the local crops that were grown at the time. They certainly didn't have any preserved foods or processed foods. The family had its chicken every spot my grandfather's favorite part of the chicken were the feet. Because in the shtetl, they ate everything the chicken produced: the feet, the neck, the gizzards, the pupik, everything you put in chicken soup. They put in the chicken soup. That was the big week really for some of these families. He grew up as a teenager with a more or less healthy diet, certainly not an unhealthy diet. He probably had good genes. He was a healthy individual. But he came to the States and then he can have a good time. Smoked. He had his glass of schnapps a day and didn't exercise. I don't know how you evaluate your genetic disposition. Question in my mind: you can affect your health and well-being by being careful about what you eat, what you do to your body. People just close with this one thought. People used to ask me, why are you bothering with this diet? It's crazy business with the macrobiotics. Nobody does it. It's not very popular. You're making a big thing about it. And, since then I've survived a hip replacement and an elbow fracture that needs surgery and hernia operation, and got through COVID without any adverse effects. My answers to people was that the reason I'm on this diet and doing what I'm doing in my life is my hope and dream is that I can live to die of old age. Because everybody they dies of something, Well, that was my dream. So right now, I think that, and summing up, really everything's in God's hands. We have no idea what's coming next. Get up in the morning and you have to thank God that you got up in the morning. I read a fascinating book recently on sleep. You really have to get this book. Contact me later, I can tell you about it. But this guy has researched sleep And he's come up with a conclusion that every creature sleeps. Every creature. Fish sleep, worms sleep, people sleep, and you have to get the right amount of sleep. And it's just fascinating stuff about it. He says, how about the birds? Right now we're in the pathway here. We're there for the birds flying south for the winter. You see them flying overhead. How can these birds fly for a day or two? When do they sleep? He says they sleep while they're flying. They don't fall out of the sky. Fascinating book. Anyway, so I find that I wake up in the morning and I thank God that I'm here. So far, with his help, he seems to agree with my contrariness and what I'm doing, and I've gotten to the point where I think about dying, and I don't know how it's going to happen. I'm hoping that it will just be running down. So far, it hasn't started too seriously. 84 years old. I guess I'm supposed to feel like I am. Now, I'd rather you have questions for me about the end of my talk. Oh, wow, welcome. I have a visitor from Belgium here. I don't heard you. Wow. My wife. All right.
We're all here then.
Shoot.
Can you see
Oh, hi,
everyone?
girls.
You have to tilt it a little bit. So.
Well, this is from the Cushy family in Belgium.
It's funny.
If there's any questions?
Hey.
Yeah. Somebody say something. Comments? Maybe you must have something to say. Can't hear you. Are you muted? Yeah, I don't hear you.
I have a question. I'll ask a question.
Oh, hi, Ruth.
Hi. It's
How are you
great to
doing?
see you, Michael. So you've been practicing macrobiotics all this time, really consciously, like noticing the effect on you. So what would you say to somebody who's newer at it, like and hasn't had that benefit yet in 20, 30, 40, whatever, a lot of years, or maybe you would have done something different looking back than what you've done? Just from what you've learned, is there anything you might like to share?
Well, I said doing it for 20 years, or people who've done it longer. So I don't know if I knew then what I know now, whether I would have changed what I was doing. But that's a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
I think if nothing else you can get out of it is that you just have to be more aware and sensitive to what you're doing to your body.
Yeah.
What you're putting into it, but how you're using it in the environment.
That's pretty much what I do. It's a living experiment that changes daily.
Well, it's changed for me too. I mean, I started out really gung-ho, do this thing. It turned out that fine, it worked well. I mean, I feel happy, but I required some moderation.
Mhm. All
I at
right.
least learn how much moderation I can do without endangering my life.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now, lately, I've gotten a little more flexible and having a good
I wanted to say something.
time. Yeah, oh,
Oh, okay. I
Show your
think it's
face.
important, at least with us, and I think with everybody, to find yourself a teacher, or not just one teacher, teachers that, inspire you and that you trust, and they'll answer all your questions rather than do it alone.
yeah, well, no, that's true. Well, I think in my case, there's a lot of reading. There's a lot of
And reading,
text,
yeah.
a lot of text out there, and not just Cushy and Alex Jack, but other people, Hara and all just other writers over the years. We've done the Waxman stuff. And there's, plus things, not macrobiotic, as I mentioned. Reading, book on sleep, book on meditating. I mean, there's just so many ideas out there. And you have to hold the right ones that you think are right for you. And don't interfere with what your whole intentions are.
Dad, I have a question.
Oh, yeah, I hear you now.
If you were now to present yourself in front of medical students now in school, from all your years in experience, what would be your biggest advice to them?
I don't know what I just gave as my advice to you. I mean, in their case, getting filled with the scientific approach to things, stress for them. It's not just scientific. The problem today we have is that science has done such wonderful things. But everybody says, well, that's the way we should go. High tech and modern technology and drugs and everything else that are available, and just kind of stress to them that be aware. All the answers aren't there. You can say, well, this is a great wonder drug that just came out. And, we should all be pushing that, take it. And it's like with the COVID, unfortunately with this COVID business, everybody's pushing the vaccine, take the vaccine, got to do it, it's wonderful, it's a great thing. Did it in less than a year and all this business, and now they're finding out some really scary things. So, well, that was interesting. Oh, we're back. Anyway.
Michael, I have a question. This is Aaron. Yeah. I'm referring to what you said, contrarian. I find myself in the same situation. I value very much the macrobiotic lifestyle over 3 years now, and it's done good things for me. But I'm unable to convince even my close friends, not to speak about other people. I have friends that are not well, and one or two even died recently, but I was trying to convince them to change and try macrobiotics. I'm not successful. I'm a little frustrated. What advice would you give in cases like this, based on your experience, which is longer than mine?
Yeah, well, it's the same problem. I'm still frustrated. So I have friends that I know are not doing what they should be doing, but I've given up preaching to them. They know what I did. I don't know, if I come up with something every once in a while that seems to favor what I'm doing, then I pass it on.
Is there anything, any advice that did work for you? Something that you found that is working, that's more impacting people? Anything?
One thing I can think of is me. I mean, it's just that I'm 84 years old, and I've, over the years, people come to me and say, you don't look 80. I mean, to feel a little bit like 84, but that seems to be one thing. They look at you, they look at Lois Feinerman up here on top of the screen. He's even crazier than I am. I mean, I can't keep up with her. She's past 80 as well. I mean, so we try to eat well and exercise well. And it's difficult. This is one thing. Maybe this is one of the faults that I have with macrobiotics. Hasn't ever gotten me going. Really think about it. All the good stuff written down. It's hard to get people to change their lives that drastically.
I'd like to make a comment on that if I could.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
As a child of macrobiotic parents, that was a big thing for me because I was always the odd person out who's doing the weird stuff and carrying rice balls to school with seaweed on them and plums in it and having miso and not allowed to eat what everybody else eats. At first, that's very scary for people who have, this comes down to macrobiotics for me being macro. So that includes the social, that includes our environment socially, the people we're around, how we interact with them, that type of stuff. And I found, like you said, basically the only thing that convinced people to try and change their diets in my life, and I'm saying from my entire life, I've had to eat like this. You know, I had small periods where I tested things, but it was like, here's a hamburger. Was basically what you said. It was people seeing me and being like, how is it that you have so much energy? Why are you so positive all the time? It's because I don't have pain from the poisons that you put into your body. If you stop putting in the poison, you'll stop hurting as much. Figure out what the poison is. And that's helped more people do their own thing, because then they don't feel explained to, like I'm telling them what to do because I'm a better person than them, and it feels condescending. So for me, I had to come from the standpoint of Socratic method and basically ask them, why do you care? Like, why do you want to be more like me in any way? Like, what is it, this quality? Why does it seem good to you? And then they think about it, figure it out themselves. And then you can say, if you want some different ways that can help that process, some tools I learned or practices were, first of all, cutting out sugar, cutting out meat, and just seeing what happens and da-da-da. But you don't have to do it. That's if you want to do it because you want to feel better. And then they have an incentive that sticks with them when you're gone. As long as they think it's for you, because you're the teacher and you're going to, someday they're going to have an enlightening experience and suddenly be special, they'll half-ass it. Sorry to use that. They'll be like, yeah, but the teacher's not watching. So
How old are you?
I'm now 48.
48. Okay.
It just reminds me of a kid I met when I was at the Cushing Institute. He was on the staff. He was working in the kitchen.
That might have been me.
That wasn't you. It didn't look at all like you. No, it's a young fella who got to know him. First of all, whenever one of the treats at KI, Cushing Institute, when you were there, with certain foods were only served on certain days because they were special. So like one of the things that sort of special is natto. Macro people know natto. It's pretty hard to get taste for natto. You know? But when the natto came, this kid was in seventh heaven. He would sit there with a big soup spoon.
Yeah, I knew that.
He was natto. So I said, what, how did you come to natto? He says, oh, let me tell you how I was raised. My parents were raising macro people. They figured the only way they could raise us kids without outside influences was to go someplace where there were no outside influences.
Yeah, we had no.
He was raised, listen to this, he was raised in the Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska.
Oh, nice.
Little tiny islands out into the Bering Sea, really way out. I mean, it was cold and windy and stormy. He was raised there. Parents, I guess, truck stuff into kids. One of the things they stuffed him full of was natto. Figured it was good and healthy for him. He loved it. It was like, you know, having Wheaties in the morning for breakfast. But that's what his family did. They went out to the Aleutian Islands to live. To the kids not being influenced by outside. A little exaggerated and contrarian, but you know, this interesting that people will do to protect their children. You had a question? Everybody's happy.
I have a question.
Yes. Oh.
Hi.
Hi.
I have reactions to nightshades, but I avoid them so I don't eat them. But I notice when I use curry or turmeric, or they're all in the same dish. Then later in the day, my fingers will start feeling different. I'll go, uh-oh, what did I eat? Do you know anything about seasonings affecting arthritis?
No. We use seasonings. I have one of my other treats for myself is my special omelet, which I have now once a week. range-fed eggs, phony cheese, cheese omelet. Put a lot of turmeric in it and a lot of garlic in it, some sea salt, Himalayan salt actually. And it's fried in a frying pan with toasted sesame oil. It's a real treat. And I don't have any problems with it.
Okay.
Well, she uses a lot of spices.
What about paprika?
We don't use much paprika. You have to, if it bothers you, don't eat it. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you.
Okay, I just wanted to ask.
It's like people like greens. You gotta have greens. Parsley, kale, and whatever greens there are in kuzbara. Right? I cannot stand kuzbara. To me, it tastes like soap. Other people, it doesn't taste like soap. To me, it doesn't. Don't eat kuzbara. That's all. I can spot it when I'm going out to a restaurant, maybe have a salad. I said, uh-oh, it's got kuzbara in it. Doesn't make me sick. I just don't like it. But I mean, find out what's like. I only discovered after getting to be a macrobiotic that sugar was a bad actor. Because I mean, sugar's not really on the list. I mean, it's supposed to avoid it, not use it. No, I don't touch it. I mean, you go shopping, go with Lois, everything you pick up, the sugar, put it back. Not only sugar, but evaporated cane juice, which is sugar, sucrose, which is sugar, and dextrose, which is sugar, and maltose, which is sugar. That's what the ingredients in these products is: sucrose, and dextrose, and hydrogenated cane juice. Don't eat it. Anybody else? He was back. No. Okay. Okay, well, we're not on YouTube. I can tell you about
You're right.
the vaccinations.
Yeah. Michael, I want to know if you remember giving me that advice all those years ago about the 2-year-old's 3-degree burns.
Hi, man. How are you? I've been watching it today.
Good, how are you?
That's something to say to everybody. So I was waiting.
Pardon?
So you've had something to say to everybody who's talked today. So,
Is that a bad thing?
or anything, I don't know.
I just wondered if you remembered, that's all.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Made a big
remember what's
difference to me. But
I remember Nava too. I haven't heard from him. I was here tonight also.
no, not remember me. If you remembered giving me the advice about the 2-year-old's 3-degree burns.
I didn't hear you well.
I wondered if you remembered giving me the advice when I asked you about the 3-degree burns for the little boy.
Oh, no, not really. I gave a lot of
Well,
advice to other people back in the old days.
it made a big difference, so thank you for that.
Okay. Still have some time. Maybe I have something else I can say. Let's check my notes. From this day.
You're welcome to continue, and you're welcome to say
Yeah, I'm
goodnight.
just checking my little notepad here to see what I have. I mentioned the. Well, who has the sleep book? This is really a must read for everybody. Still there, my wife. Nope, that's it. I think we covered everything I wanted to get across.
All right, then.
There was a book out on sleep. I forget the name. Well, yeah. Find the book. Oh, here it is. Okay, it's called Why We Sleep.
All right.
fascinating. Here's things that says, we know that, just a quickie, I remember that he talked about mammal, what the mammals all have to sleep. All animals have to sleep. Okay? Think about the whale, and the whale lives in water all the time. Okay, how does the whale sleep? Simple question. Doesn't go up on land to sleep. Sleeps in the water. Why doesn't he sink? Drown. It's one of the things he brings up. Studied so deeply now that they think that the simple bacteria sleep. They have a rest period. Any organism they've studied that doesn't sleep. One thing he did say about humans, he runs the sleep lab in Berkeley, University of California. They've studied a lot of studies on people in the sleep lab. And they found
Michael, come just a bit closer to your microphone.
Yeah. Regardless of age, genetic disposition, whatever, sex, human being worldwide should have 7 to 8 hours sleep a night. Okay, it says people who we all know who sleep 3 and 4 hours a night and seem to have unlimited energy are not going to pay. Are going to pay the price eventually. So that sleep deprivation works against their overall long-term health. It's the kind of stuff that he brings in this book. It's really, and also, when a bird. How about birds? How do birds sleep? Okay, birds usually, they sit on wires, and that, and they should fall off the wire when they do sleep. Holding on to the power lines. It says the other thing is monkeys and apes, which are closer to us. Where do they sleep? Very simply, they all climb a tree. Go to sleep in a tree. Okay, that protects them from people who might bother them, and also, if they didn't, they fall asleep, they fall over. Okay, they don't want to do that, so they go up in the tree and go to sleep. So brought up the whole thing about the birds flying south. You can fly for thousands of miles, sleep on the way, and not fall out of the sky.
Michael, I have another question.
Yeah.
What about body rub? Body rub.
Oh, body rub. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I do the body rub every morning.
You do?
Okay. Yeah, the reason for that makes sense. Because I'm glad you brought that up, because that makes good sense when it comes to science and body function. Body gets rid of 70% of its water, not by urine. Okay, the skin. Okay? The skin is actually the breathing organ of the body. So when you do the body rub every morning, some people do it twice a day, clean off all the dry stuff in the skin and let your pores breathe. You're really helping your respiration system. Not respiration. Water system. Basis.
Okay. Thank you.
That's why I haven't used deodorant. Okay. Just getting up early.
Well then, Michael,
Yeah.
it remains only for me to thank you. I feel like this is family here. It feels so good. It's really nice to have you with us. Thank you
And
very
all
much.
three of you, and you and Sylvan got me started here. So
Yeah,
certainly helped me along anyway.
it's great to see Aviva here. It's great to see Lois. Nice to have you. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ginat.